Can I ask Norman to talk to us about the level of commitment we have from the most senior levels of our party?
Certainly, and thanks very much for inviting me today. I was pleased to have been asked and delighted to be here. About 4 years ago, I was lucky enough to have a guy called Andy Yacoub shadow me under the Operation Black Vote initiative. Andy had been a Metropolitan Police officer, and in the aftermath of all the horrors of the Metropolitan Police, he took it upon himself with a fellow officer to establish the Met's positive action team and got the whole diversity operation going within the Metropolitan Police as an ethnic minority police officer in London, recognising that the situation there was unacceptable. The time that he spent with me, both in Westminster and in my constituency, was enormously valuable from my point of view, and he's a fascinating guy. But he then contacted me after the last general election and after the conference last autumn, and said to me that he was depressed by the outcome of the general election in terms of the appearance of the parliamentary party, but that he had been looking at what we were doing about it. He's not a party member, but he'd been looking on all of the online debate and discussion, and he had some ideas which he wanted to share with me. And so we met again in the autumn, and he did a report for me, which I've passed on to Meryl, and I think this guy can help us quite a bit, because he went on to become the diversity officer for Suffolk County Council. He's got a wealth of experience about how you change the culture of organisations, and that frankly is what we've got to do in this party. But when he wrote this report, he posed a very interesting question. He asked essentially, why is it necessary? He says that he puts the question this way: what should the body of people responsible for making its constitution a reality look like? Is what this body of people looks like important? And he says the answer is actually yes and no, and he makes the point that a single individual from an ethnic minority in themselves can't hope to represent the extraordinarily diverse range of views and opinions of people who happen to look like him or her. And it's really important that we recognise that. But he then goes on to make the contrary point that, and I just read directly from it because he puts it very well, the issue is actually about how the Lib Dem body of elected people thinks, acts and reacts as a collective, as an entity. This collective will think and act differently based on its makeup. And he goes on to make the point that because it is predominantly white, male, middle class and middle-aged, and I plead guilty to all of those, it will think in a particular way, and it will think in a more narrow way than if it was more diverse. More women and more people from a range of ethnic backgrounds and identities. And so he makes the very powerful case that it is, of course, very important that we act on it. But not just because of the way we think. For my mind, there are two other reasons. First of all, it's utterly wrong that this party is not giving opportunity to a more diverse group of people. Opportunity in this party flows to a narrow group of people, and that's something that actually should shame us. And beyond that, the final reason why I think it is so important, and this is an economic reason actually, is that we are not exploiting the full talents of the people who ought to be available to us.
That's right.
And there's a wonderful quote that Dinty Batstone, who did the review following the conference in the autumn, primarily looking at women, but she quoted from John Stuart Mill on the subjection of women, 1869. In all things of any difficulty and importance, those who can do them well are fewer than we need, even with the most unrestricted latitude of choice, and any limitation on the field of selection deprives society of some chances of being served by the competent without ever saving it from the incompetent. Now that's a wonderful quote. but it just makes the point that this isn't just sort of soft, woolly liberalism or progressive politics. This is about getting the best out of the people that are available in this country and giving opportunities to all. And that's why I personally feel totally committed to trying to change this party for the better. And I've talked to Nick directly about it, and I know that on a personal basis he absolutely shares that view. I know that he feels deeply embarrassed by what this party looks and feels like, and recognises the need for change. I applaud Sal for the great work that she's done on this. I'm particularly in favour of the leadership programme, actually, and I say that this might sound bizarre, but I say that from my own experience and perspective. I was a candidate, rather like Lynn, I was a candidate for 11 years trying to win through in my seat in North Norfolk, and you do it in a way against all of the odds. You have, as a white male, middle class, you do it contrary to all the expectations. It is a massive personal commitment, and for much of that 11 years I felt completely on my own, and I felt throughout that the party, for all able candidates, does not do nearly well enough in identifying those people who have the potential, have the ability to break through and to succeed. And so I felt it from my point of view, but I recognise that there are very many people in this party who face, in a way, far greater institutional barriers than I faced. I faced institutional barriers in winning. You know, the people of North Norfolk didn't want me. That was a barrier. But eventually I convinced them to change their mind. But I recognise that the barriers are far greater for many other people. And that's why the leadership programme is so important, and I think can make a real difference. But you are also right that it is not enough on its own. And one of the points that Andy Yacoub goes on to make in his really good report, which I would commend to you, and I'm going to copy to Isam, is that there are two strategies that need to be deployed at the same time. And the first one he describes is about addressing the way in which the current makeup of MPs thinks and acts, and the role that we have, the responsibility that we have to change things. He talks about how we can go about encouraging, incentivising a changed attitude of mind, and in particular making MPs, requiring, if necessary, MPs to be accessible so that people can come and shadow us. And he makes the fascinating point that for people from many ethnic minorities looking at the Lib Dem parliamentary party, they will see nothing there that they can associate with instinctively. A white middle class male person will see a group of white middle class men and they will immediately think, well, I could be one of that group. It looks rather different, I suspect, for very many other people. And so increasing the accessibility so that people can experience what it's like and recognise that actually, yes, they can do it, is really important. So changing the mindset of that group of people who are there at the moment is important. But then the second strategy is about how we increase and retain the support within ethnic minority communities. So because there has to be the pool of candidates coming through who then have the opportunity to stand for Parliament and make the breakthrough. And it's therefore about reaching out into the community, into all the diverse communities of this country, to encourage people to believe, people who share our philosophy, to believe that they have an opportunity in this party to make something of themselves and to succeed. So there is an enormous challenge ahead of us, but from a personal basis I am committed to doing all I can to helping to change things. But I think this guy can also help us, and I hope very much we can take advantage of his offer of help. Thank you very much.
Thank you.